This is my tutorial on how to make sleeve tabs. And so they're sometimes known as Swiss tabs. They are the little bit of fabric that goes up your sleeve and then you can fasten it around at the front. This one is for a 3/4 length sleeve, and this is the one I'll be giving you measurements and instructions for today. But if you do want one that's higher up, all you need to do is measure the length from where you want it to fold up, so somewhere around like between your elbow and your shoulder. Measure the length of the sleeve and then take away 1 inch, or actually 2 inches is probably a little bit better for the longer ones, and then you will have a long enough tab without it sticking out. So that's what it looks like inside, but it's long enough that it covers it up, and then you can just use this as a detail feature to fasten the cuffs. If you're wondering about this particular piece I'm working on, it's actually a cardigan. This is the Gilet Monceau by Cozy Little World, and it's a French pattern, as you probably guessed. Usually it doesn't have pockets on the front and it doesn't have sleeve tabs. I made this 2 sizes smaller so it would fit more like a knit shirt. I do have this piece of clothing that I really like, that I got in the UK from White Stuff, and it's kind of like a collarless shirt which is made out of knit, but I wanted to make something that kind of worked a bit like this does. It's not quite the same kind of fastener, it's a little bit more conventional, but I'm happy with it, and hopefully you will want to try making Swiss tabs too.
So for our sleeve tabs we need to cut 2 strips, and we're going to kind of make it almost a bit like bias tape, so you need it to be twice as wide plus seam allowances. Alright, so I'm going to be cutting mine at 2.5 inches. Where's my ruler gone? There it is. 2.5 inches. And you can add this to an existing shirt, but I'm doing it before I've actually hemmed the cuffs on mine. And then the width is going to be 6.5, which is actually the width of this ruler. There's a bit of waste there, but I don't really mind that so much, just because I wanted to make sure I've got a nice straight edge and it's only a little bit of fabric. Alright, so now we have 2, so we've got 1 for each sleeve. So once you get to the iron, you're going to figure out that's the wrong side for me, so I'm going to do wrong sides. I'm going to do 1/4 inch on each edge. By each edge I mean the top and the bottom, the longer edges. I'm just going to fold that in to the wrong side. And if you want to use some kind of spray, go for it. Just to help keep those creases. This is like a scuba knit, so this is kind of not easy to press at all. So this is not the greatest for the demonstration, but this is what I need. So hopefully you'll still get what I'm trying to achieve. And if you're not a quilter, you might not know what 1/4 inch looks like by eye. I've had a few years of practice, so I'm just eyeballing mine, but if you want to measure it, you're welcome to do that. You also want to fold in one of the edges. So this is going to be your bottom edge, the visible edge. It's just going to finish it off. So we're going to fold that in by 1/4 inch as well. This gets very springy and awkward. If it's a bit more, that's fine. I think this one's going to have to be a bit more for me to have better control. As long as they're both the same, because we're going to make 2 of these. And then you're going to fold these 2 folded edges together to make the strip half as wide. If you've got steam in your iron, if you've got any water in the iron to steam, go ahead and use that if your fabric will allow it. Because I wish I had some water in my iron right now, but I don't. And then once you've done that, we need to go over to the sewing machine. And then we're going to sew all the way around. So I would like to start from this kind of wonky top edge, just to try and tame it a little bit. We're going to do about 1/8 inch, maybe even a little smaller than that. Just a bit of top stitching, holds it all together. sure you're catching the top and the bottom. And get those corners ready for when you get to those. Pivot. So now I've worked on making these strips and they're ready. I've actually finished the other end that was raw. You can do that with either pinking shears or on a serger, or I guess you could have tucked it in at the beginning as well. I just like to try and reduce some of that bulk. And then you want to choose some buttons. So this is what I've gone with. The reason I've chosen this button, which will be eventually, I guess, kind of here if it was fastened, I was looking at the width of the actual tab. So you want your button to be taking up most of that tab. You don't want anything too small, but you also don't want anything too big that it's going to be bigger than the width of the tab, because you're going to need to put buttonholes on there. We're going to put vertical buttonholes on, so it's easier to slip that through. So you could go bigger if you wanted, but I prefer to kind of keep it reasonably low profile. Also, you have to wear it on your sleeve all the time, whether it's fastened or not, so you probably don't want anything too huge, but you could make a little statement button. I was thinking about having little red ones, but I've gone with just these plain ones. Alright, so now I have my buttonhole foot on my other machine. I've got my button in the back, it's all set up. I've done a practice run as well, and so I'm ready to add my buttonhole. I am just going to position this, and again you can center this if you prefer. I'm just going to start mine reasonably close to the bottom of the tab, and we're going to make vertical buttonholes, especially if you've got a bigger button. You can't make the width go all the way along. So that's centered. What I've done is use the width of the foot to figure out where the middle is, and we're ready to go. I'm quite close to the bottom, and that's how I want it to be. So here we go. My buttonhole. I'm just going to repeat that for the second one, and we're nearly done. Once you've got 2 buttonholes, I'm going to punch those holes out using a buttonhole cutter. I'm not a fan of using the seam ripper for this, just because you can go a little bit too far into the stitches sometimes if you're using certain types of fabrics, but you might just need to give it a little bit more encouragement with a pair of scissors. If you've already sewn up the sleeve, you're going to have to undo it like I've had to on this. So if it's already a mid shirt, you're going to have to do a few inches up the side, probably up to the elbow. And on mine, I'm just going to keep those bits together and kind of finger press where the fold is, where the opposite side to the seam will be. And this is the wrong side out right now. So flip that over to the seams on the bottom. And then get your ruler and take into account how long this hem is going to be if it's unhemmed. Mine I'm going to fold up by 1 inch, and I need the tabs to be located 1 inch higher up as well. So if my tab is 6 inches long, I need to measure 8 inches from the bottom of the sleeve in the middle. So that's why we finger pressed it, to kind of have a good idea where the middle is. And then make a mark. If you want, you can just double check by putting the seams together that mark is in a good place. So that should be where it folds. so mine's actually a little bit off. Can move it there. And then it depends if you've got a right side or a wrong side. I have a slightly different colour in my bobbin, so that's my wrong side. So what you want to do is have the right side facing up, because when it goes through to the right side, you'll be folding it like this and this bit will be underneath. So right side facing up, align the top of the edge with that dot and have that dot in the middle. Get a pin if you have one, pin in place. And then what we're going to do is take it to the machine and sew it. The next thing you need to do is the last thing you need to do, and that is on the right side of the fabric. That's where you can see the square of stitches but you haven't got the strap. That's on the inside. You're going to put that under the machine and you're going to sew your button on in that square. So when we turn our sleeve the right side out, you'll see your button on the outside, and then you'll be able to test this a little bit if you want. You will still need to do your other sleeve and finish the seam off again. And that's it. You can hand sew the button on if you prefer, rather than use the machine, but that's how you make sleeve tabs.